coming to us from some kind of glorious sunny hellhole that is
It's warm
obviously.
today.
There's like spiders that are 20 feet tall out in Florida and stuff, and alligators and like lions.
This week, just to make sure I have this for now.
Hold on.
This isn't even like
Just bear with me, guys. Just
I went down great job.
So those of you who owe me, I owe you
Yeah,
$70, and I owe, I'm already paid my 35. Right, and Irene, they all paid for me. Irene and I owe her 15. I owe you. I don't carry cash. I don't even have my
I had $20 tonight, and on my way up the hill.
you gotta move that back, Seamus.
And their friend Madison, I stopped, I'm like, where are you going?
It's streaming, yeah.
No, I'm not walking there. So I said, hop in, turn my car around, and
Hearing for acting deputy mayor Chris Nolan. Normally we would do these at finance meeting, but I actually dovetailed a very important meeting to this confirmation hearing that I'm hoping that folks can hang out for a department or public utilities meeting with our superintendent regarding a new DOH EPA initiative and mandate.
I already sent it to him. Amy's quick.
Regarding lead and copper pipes, I believe, is the title. So without further ado, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And lead us to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call while we're waiting for Mr. Kelly. Has he joined? Yes. Okay. Can we shoot him a text? Okay. Councilmember Kelly, hopefully joining us. Councilmember Ashman Pearson here. Councilmember Steele present. Councilmember Men here. Councilmember Connolly Wilson present. Councilmember Soriento here. And Council President Mantello is here. We have 6 present, 1. We're hoping absent. Okay. All right. So per section C35 and C36 in the Tri City Charter, I have scheduled a confirmation hearing for acting deputy mayor Chris Nolan for Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 at 6 p.m. or a few minutes late in the city council chambers. And I want to thank Chris for joining us and welcome him to the table in front of us. And Seamus, do you mind bringing that lamp?
Yeah, the torture shot.
Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Oh, I was
And,
confused. I was like, wait, what?
Maria's looking for a lamp.
We can muster something up.
So, Chris is joining us. He's joined Mayor Madden's team. And Chris's resume is in front of you. And well, initially we'll start out. There's no vote tonight, essentially confirmation hearing, and then at the finance next week we have a finance meeting. We connect, and then the following week, should it pass finance, that will go to the regular meeting in April. So I will first.
Council President. He joined.
Awesome.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm glad you did that. That's your job. Can we see him? It doesn't matter. We really don't want to see him.
Yeah,
Okay.
he doesn't have his video on.
Okay, no problem. Councilmember Ellie, thank you for joining us. Can you just for the audience, say present or here?
Oh, there you
Ask him.
Councilmember Ellie, are you here?
He's muted. Hold on, let me ask him to unmute. Excuse
Okay,
me.
please unmute, Councilmember Ellie. I thought being in person would be away from technology.
We will never be away from technology. That will be legacy of the.
Hello, Councilmember Ellie.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Awesome. We
Can you hear me?
Councilmember Ellie, hopefully we'll get you on speaker somehow. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me now?
Sure can. Thank you for joining, Councilmember Ellie.
All right.
We're officially at the confirmation hearing. We just did the pledge and the roll call. And we are now going to hear from the acting deputy mayor, Chris Nolan, to first tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we will ask some questions and take it from there. So take it away. And you don't have to start at the age of 5, maybe 10.
Bend south is 1 hour, 49 minutes from your location by car in light traffic.
Correction.
Is working now?
Yes.
First off, thank you for having me here this evening. It has been a pleasure working with you for the last month plus. A little bit about myself. You said start at the age of 7. No. First and foremost, what I would say is, I'm a local guy. Grew up in Cohoes across the river. Always watched what was happening over here in Troy in my youth. And then, had the great opportunity to work in Albany for about 12 years or so, doing advocacy for colleges and universities. That familiarized me a bit more with the great education that was happening here across the stage, RPI, Hudson Valley, some of the great activities that were happening. And then I had the opportunity to jump from representing 100+ colleges and universities and taking on a new role. So it expanded from doing state and federal activities to the community level. And community is something that is ingrained in my being, I guess I would say. And that's something that I realized that I came over to Troy and was attending some meetings for the comprehensive plan, working with the foundation for how we support important initiatives like the Uniting Line. How do we bring our communities together? And it wasn't until I came to RPI and I was talking to one of my mentors that the light bulb clicked. That as I look back on the people that were mentors, that had a lot to do with where my passion was. So I guess I will say, when the mayor approached me for this position, I went, who, me? And then he laid out his reasons, and it clicked with me that public service has always been intertwined in the work I've been doing over the years. And that's why I wanted to come here to try as the deputy mayor. The work that I did with the community at RPI, the work that I've done with the Board of Health through Albany County. I think one of the things that I'm very proud of is listening to all the different people at the table. And I try to do that through all my volunteer activities, through all the activities that I do, challenges and the opportunities of work. I think I try to take everyone's voices into consideration and move forward in the best way. So I will just say thank you again for having me here. Oh, and the last piece that I did want to mention, that I do think is important. I thought back to my mentor. I thought back to my aunt, who was a town board member in the town of Chester, who was responsible for creating one of the first composting and transfer stations for waste like that and recycling in the Adirondacks. So when I think back to the work that my mom did as a city council member, and standing in cards on the weekend, which you all have done, I imagine, when there's an issue and trying to resolve it. And then I also think back to my grandfather, who was an incredible volunteer in the community. And I would just say, those as my mentors, that's what brought me here.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I know some council members have questions, and we appreciate once again you coming to this evening's hearing. I would also just ask, the acoustics in here are really, really tough. Like literally, we were at a table earlier. We couldn't hear each other from one end to the other. It's so tough. So I know it's not your nature. If you could just try to speak up a little and right into the microphone. I would ask council members to do the same. So I have some questions, but I'll offer it to my fellow colleagues first.
Mr. President,
Yes, Council Member Ashby McPherson.
sorry, I'm going to ask some really tough questions.
I would expect nothing less.
First one is, why do you want to be the deputy mayor in Troy?
Well, so I'll go back to my opening comments. It's about help, about engagement in our community process. But ultimately it comes down to, and I think we as a whole, that includes the city council, that includes the administration, that includes all the residents around us.
And where do you live?
I have an apartment.
In Troy, you live?
Yeah. So you may know that I was over at Coast. This
Yeah.
was not necessarily an expected move, but I rented an apartment here in Troy, and in the process of fully moving into that, I'm domiciled in Troy, for a while as we move.
Is that the only reason you're moving to Troy, is to be the deputy mayor?
Well, so I will also say, in this case, yes, because it's not a requirement, but it's also important to me in the community where I'm working. Moving is something that we have been, myself and my partner have been thinking about for a while. I will say this to the scales.
So how much of Troy do you know?
Well, that's a tough question. That's all relative. But I would say quite a bit, from all the way up in Lansing, south end, up onto the hill. Do I know everything? No. Do I know a lot from my 7+ years working in the community, attending neighborhood meetings? I would say yes. But I think that you all know your districts so well. And that's one of the reasons why, you and I have chatted, and I know I've spoken with other ones about, getting on the ground and seeing our community.
Correct. I know one of the requirements is to live in Troy, and I'm a big advocate about making sure that you're going to be working in Troy, because a lot of our employees have to live in Troy. And I'm born and raised in Troy, so I don't only just know the district I represent. I know every district of Troy because I was born and raised. So why I was asking you that is to see what particular areas of Troy do you really favor? Do you favor them? I know we favor them all, but some of them have little special spots in our hearts. Mine is South Troy, so I was born and raised in South Troy, and I moved to different sections of Troy. and I ended up in Lansingburg with my husband, and raised my children up in Lansingburg. But I still go to different, always my roots bring me back to Troy, to South Troy, I should say. So that's why I was asking if there's other areas of Troy that,
Well, you know, from a personal side, with the deputy mayor hat on, yes, I agree. All parts of Troy matter, all parts are special. Lansingburg does hold a special place in my heart. My grandmother's family used to have a bakery in Lansingburg. My mom told me stories about walking over to the bakery, and we frequented restaurants such as Rhode Island in my childhood, you know, through being an adult. So Lansingburg in particular does have a special place in my heart. But you know, as I've learned more about Troy, the varying communities also.
once, if you're confirmed as the deputy mayor, what is the one thing or several things that you may want to look to do for the city of Troy, and our residents, I should say?
So, you know, one of the things that drew me to the position is when I was speaking with the mayor, the fact that he wants to focus on the neighborhoods. And that takes getting on the ground in them more so, working with you as we progress this forward. But I think there's tremendous opportunity to impact our neighborhoods, both through the DRI funding that's downtown as a neighborhood, through the ARPA funding, $44 million, $42 million coming from the federal government, but also through the, you know, close to $78 million that the city puts forward through its budget every year. And it's beyond also just money, it's people. It's getting into the neighborhoods, meeting with them. You know, I really enjoyed going up to Lansingburg and attending the meeting where we discussed the potential for the ARPA funds and meeting with the residents. So I would say, you know, it's getting into the neighborhoods and seeing what we can make a difference there.
They say Troy has a different atmosphere in Troy, because once you're in Troy, it's totally different from other cities around us, other municipalities. And I think a lot of us think of Troy as taking it to the next step and making it a better community for all. So I do appreciate your honesty, and I'm just going to end it off here. Thank you. Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Steen.
Thank you. Chris, very excited. And you, Chris, in his former position at RPI, is a tremendous advocate for the neighborhoods around the college. So I'm excited with the prospect of the president coming on board with your connections. It presents an opportunity for us to mend and grow that relationship. So I'm hoping that's one of the many things on your plate.
Say that I want to build new bridges, additional bridges to the university. You're right, I do really look forward to that opportunity. And, you know, and there's a lot that's happened at the university over the last 7 years. Definitely going to be interesting to see the different direction that the new president wants to take the university. And I do want us to be part of that conversation.
I think you're really good at your resume, the work that you've done in our city prior to this. Really, really questions of your experience, knowledge of so much of what we're now in groundwork for, and we're now taking to the next level. So I don't really have any questions other than, do you have any spare time, and what do you do in your spare time? You don't have any.
Yes, what's spare time? You know, I will say actually, so I did take 2 weeks off before starting this job, you know, and again, had a conversation with the mayor, and we agreed it's probably the only 2 weeks off I'll have off for the next 2 years. We went snowshoeing though, and in the city of Troy. I wanted to familiarize myself. I mean, one of the first things I did when I came to RPI was really walk around Lcrr Park, walk around the cemetery. The first thing I did was to challenge myself. It was hard in October, was to challenge myself to do all of my shopping in Troy for the holidays. And I did. And it was great because that exposed other people to all the different unique places we have. And Seamus mentions T&J. So Teresa at T&J is one of my favorite places to go to. And I discovered that in those first months. So my spare time, I enjoy the outdoors. I love the outdoors. It's those type of things that, and I think they help clear my mind so that I can focus on the issues that matter.
Make some time for yourself. It's very important. You have a balance. I know it's hard to do, but thank you.
Councilmember Mann.
So one of the challenges it seems like the deputy mayor faces is coordinating all the different things, all the different departments within the city. And what's your approach to working with all the different department heads so that they can do their job in the most effective way as possible?
Yeah. So I'm not a micromanager, although I know everyone that says that as a being one. No, really, I'm not. The one thing that became very clear to me in the first weeks here is we have some fantastic people, and they make this job easier. That doesn't mean that we don't have to push people in different directions and try different ideas, but I try to be a collaborative leader and push people where they need to be pushed. So that's what I'll say. But I will say I'm incredibly impressed with the staff, police, fire, public utilities, the crews that we had out in response to the snowstorm. I know you heard complaints, but the fact that we had people actually commenting on what a great job we did impressed me, because you know how much harder it is for somebody to say something good than it is for somebody to say something bad. So I will just say they make my job easier. It's still not an easy job, but they make my job easier, and I try to work collaboratively.
Thanks, Chris. How are you? And then we'll take Councilmember Conley Wilson, Councilmember Sorrento, go right across. Couple of quick things. First and foremost, welcome to Troy.
Thank you.
I think, and I know one of the things, obviously, I've seen firsthand to follow up Councilmember Men's deputy mayor is I think there's more of a balance of a deputy mayor as someone that oversaw 10 people to 600 people. First and foremost, have you ever overseen a staff? I was looking at your resume, I didn't see that, but have you?
Yes, I oversaw the federal relations office in DC for the university for a while. I also, on the term basis, led the communications team for the for RPI as well, and I did oversee people in my prior capacity at CFC.
Okay. Have you ever oversaw maintenance, laborers, electricians, day-to-day operations type of people? And the reason I ask that is I truly believe, and I've made no qualms about it. I talked to the mayor about it. I truly believe we essentially need more, let's just say, putting it nicely, supervisors doing their job and a little hands off. At the same time, we need more, let's just say, leadership from our department heads to our supervisors to essentially take down the silos, work together as agencies, something that Councilmember Gully, myself, and Kim and Irene have requested, more of like a multi-agency task force approach, not so much a task force, but a multi-agency approach where the DPW, code, etc. I'd like to see more coordination amongst those departments. So, I guess on twofold, the question is, okay, you've overseen people. What do you intend to do in terms of kind of being a hands-on, but also a hands-off? There really is a balance, and it sounds like you're more of a hands-off, but I think there needs to be a real balance as a deputy mayor.
Well, and the supervisors that I've met with, one of the first things that we did, within the first week was meeting bring them together so there's adequate information sharing. And then also getting to know the teams. So, you know, and there are, again, some fantastic people at City Hall doing some wonderful work. Again, it doesn't mean that we don't need to push at times. That's always necessary, especially in large organizations. But communication is key. And that's why the first thing to do, in my opinion, that's what we've done. And they were doing it previously, was to bring the different supervisors, department heads together. So there is information sharing. And I'm seeing that, and we're also seeing the results, and we'll continue to see the results from that. I also am used to working with varying audiences, both from my putting on my community relations hat, looking over there at Sue, some of the community meetings that we've been at. You have people, a diverse audience in the room. I'll also say when I was on the Civil Service Commission, you know, we were dealing with you know, laborers within the civil service system all the way up through to the leadership. So you had a lot of different people with different experiences coming to the table. And, you know, that's just something that you work through and you work with everyone equally.
Well, the commission actually more does the tasks and things like that, not so much hands-on.
Yeah, it was a little bit different in Cohoes. As I found out, it's a little different here in Troy than it is over in Cohoes, because the commission is a bit more hands-on in Cohoes, and especially when you're changing job specs.
Did you get paid for the commission? 'Cause if it was volunteer.
Yeah, there was a small payment that came along with that commission.
Probably $1,000 a year or something.
Yeah, I think it was a little less than that, but yes.
Chris, I did notice on your resume, are you still a board member in the Albany County Board of Health? It says present, board president.
Oh, I resigned from that position effective when I started with the city of Troy.
Yeah,
So there wouldn't-
obviously you can't be a resident of
Exactly.
Albany County.
Exactly.
Okay. And then, you know, just a couple more things, to get back to the deputy mayor. I know that you talked about like engaging the community and things like that. I really see our deputy mayor, well, don't get me wrong, it's important. You're either going to oversee, I don't think it's really been ironed out yet in terms of the ARPA funding. If you're going to oversee it totally 100% or hire someone to help out, and I guess that's being ironed out. But more importantly, our deputy mayor really needs the day-to-day operations. And to me, don't get me wrong, engage in the communities, it's all nice, etc. But your role is really to ensure that those day-to-day operations, that the garbage is being picked up, that the recycling is happening, that our recycling coordinator is going out there educating folks, that the litter patrol, you know, is putting mobile cameras up that we've been begging for in certain neighborhoods that we know that there's dumping, illegal dumping. I want to see our deputy mayor really pay attention to those 24/7. And I really see, don't get me wrong, I love it. You're great coordinating, etc., community engagement, and that's great. I want to see our day-to-day more coordinated, as I mentioned earlier, more of that 24/7 with our, you know, folks out in the field.
Well, and I think, you know, the deputy mayor position does handle day-to-day operations, but in concert with that, and when I talk about community engagement, we need to be talking to our community to find out what's working, what's not. And that's why I think the snowstorm is one prime example. You know, it's a day-to-day operations, and it's ensuring that our crews are out there. The other side to that was communicating to the community what we were doing. So that's the engagement piece. And then also taking the information that they're giving back to us and funneling that to the right people within city government so we can react and be reactive and be responsive to our residents. And then you see it on the ARPA meetings, because ARPA is a key pillar of what I'm going to be working on. And as we work out the full details, but that's going to require community engagement because we want their ideas. We need them to come to the table with their ideas. We already, and you know, on the other hand, and that's where the, you know, my role over the last 7 years working with the different community groups, especially and our not-for-profits. You know, we have some fantastic not already on the ground, they're the subject matter experts. They can come to the table and, really inform us on what needs to be done. And we take that in concert with what we're hearing from residents, and we really do something special to help our neighborhoods.
And Chris, that's awesome. We need that. I'm stating that. We need to get our day-to-day operations in gear. What I'm saying, our enforcement is not happening where it should. Our coordination is not happening where it should. So, when we talk about engagement, nobody's saying don't engage. So that whole piece, of course you engage. I'm saying though, the 24/7 has to go hand in hand with that engagement. And, I just want to ensure, that you oversee 600 employees, that, our focus really also is on building that morale in terms of our employees, in terms of getting them to understand they're part of that bigger picture. And so they do go hand in hand, but we can't just forget about that 24/7. It's essential to ensure that engagement with the neighborhoods are going hand in hand. That's my only message on that. So
Yeah,
in full agreement, I'm just saying we need both. That's right.
and I would say the core pillar is the day-to-day operations. I'd be happy to sit down with you and talk more about where you see opportunities for change.
Sounds good. I may have a couple more follow-up. I'll hand it off to Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, I loved everything you've been talking about. Really enjoying being here. I'm just a little bit curious if you've noticed any changes that you would like to implement in the city, in general.
Well, still new. One thing that, I've already talked to the mayor about is, how do we proactively communicate what we're doing? And we did that with the snowstorm, but one minor change that we noticed is that when you call the snow emergency line, it goes to a person. And so we've had the conversation, and we haven't, need to have some additional conversations, but, should that be an automated line that says, yes, there's a snow emergency or not? So are there efficiencies that we can implement? And then if somebody didn't have their street plowed, they also know the right number to call to speak with that person and address that issue. So those are small things that should be easy to implement and that we'll look at. That was the one that came to mind because I was a little shocked to find that out, that it actually went to a person whose phone was ringing. I felt terrible. His phone was ringing off the hook the day of the snowstorm, even though it's the number we've had advertised for so long. I guess a lot of people decided to make that phone call that day. So, those are just the little things. At the larger level, we'll see what's going to happen. I'm sure there's going to be some.
Councilmember Soriano.
Chris, welcome aboard. Just have a few questions. So you mentioned that, your heart is with Lansingburg, which is a great area. Love Lansingburg.
This is going to get me in trouble, right?
No. Not gonna put you on the spot, and you can absolutely.
All right. The war of the neighborhoods, but I do, please, one sec. Councilmember Gully just said if you could talk a little bit louder into your mic, he's having a hard time hearing.
Okay, thank you.
I represent District 6, and I was just wondering, like, what you, if you had any thoughts of what you can bring to the residents and taxpayers in my district. No.
And I would make the same offer that I've made with Kim, and I know we haven't had a chance to sit down, but I'd love to walk the district with you and find out the specific concerns.
Okay.
Because, it shouldn't be me telling you, it should be us having a conversation about what needs to be done.
Into play here. So far, since you've been here, since you started, can you just tell me or tell us what has been the most challenging since you came on board, and what was the outcome? Like, how did you figure out a solution to it, or if there was anything that was challenging?
Challenges every day. I can't think of a specific instance. I will say that one of the challenges is the fact that we're moving so quickly. And we do need, more people. And everyone in this room, right, could use a little extra help. So I want to do things right. I want to do them with appropriate input. And sometimes you just have to make a judgment call. So, I would say that I'm used to topics changing, at the university, you could be having a conversation with a legislator, and the next 5 minutes later, I was having a conversation regarding snow removal, a sidewalk, or, what were we going to do about this crosswalk, or attending a community meeting, where we had police input. So the varying array of topics is not different. The speed is.
Last question. So you're going to be everywhere. And you're probably going to get yourself into a situation where there might be some conflict, where you would have to do some dispute resolution. Have you ever experienced any type of conflict, and how did you handle it?
So my approach to conflict is to listen to the people in the room. And then ultimately, if I'm the one making the decision, I'll make the decision. And I've already had that conversation with some businesses that if I'm batting 50-50, I'm winning. Not everyone's going to be happy, and that's okay. Not everybody should. That's what meeting in the middle and negotiating is about. So it kind of depends on what the conflict resolution between staff. That's one story. If it's with a community member, that's a whole different story. But I'm still going to do what I think is right.
Following up, actually, when you said more people, I'm sure someone looked at me, but it strikes a nerve. Not a person that states sometimes you don't need more people, but when it comes to agencies, when it comes to government, sometimes it's not run as efficiently as it should be. So I guess it really struck a nerve when you said more people. There were close to 20 people that were just passed in the budget for this year. We were just at a meeting. Code is still looking for 2 people. DPW is having a tough time. DPU, obviously, I'm not sure if you're having a tough time, Chris. There's a shortage of workers, etc. So I don't think it's a matter of people. I think it's a matter of efficiency. I think it's a matter of challenging some of our folks. I think it's a matter of tapping in to some of the incredible wealth that we do have in the staff now. So saying that, my question is very specific. What are you doing in terms of providing the assistance to department heads, to our supervisors, and trying to fill many of these vacancies? And where are you with that?
Yeah, so the issue of trying to recruit people is something that government, the for-profit, not-for-profit, all industries are facing. We are going to look at the positions that we have open and are looking to hire. It's a difficult job market, you're right. On the flip side, I am in conversations with our commissioners, superintendent, etc., about how we can help the people that are there now. And we do need to push them again, but we also have people that are doing a fantastic job there as well. So it takes on relying on the supervisors and the leaders to determine where we need to push and where we need to give a pat on the back. As far as the new positions, I know there are a number of openings that we will look to fill those as quickly as possible.
Are you working with, say, various nonprofits? Are you working with any workforce development agencies, Hudson Valley, our high schools? I mean, are there any efforts in that direction to try to do better recruitment, try to get the word out there? We have great jobs, benefits, etc.
Yeah, those are all great suggestions that we can take.
And then, one really big question, and, you know, I thought somebody else might ask it, but I guess it's on me. So, you know, I recognize firsthand the value of our institutions, the value of our nonprofits, the value of our major nonprofits. And, you know, listen, we have, you know, one of the, was the top 10, maybe top 20 now, universities right in our backyard in the world, nationally recognized, totally get it. However, as you mentioned earlier, we're definitely not tapping into them enough. And there was always this talk about community and, you know, for some reason, unfortunately, over the years, I think they've become more isolated in their area and they don't filter downtown as much as they used to. They don't filter out into the areas. Some of their frats do partner with some of the nonprofits like at Prospect Park and other areas of the city. And, you know, I know there's a wonderful one at St. Francis over on Congress. They're amazing. But saying that, I truly believe, take that out of the picture. The comptroller did do a report, and you probably did hear me in my legislative address, not just this year, but prior years, talk about not a public safety fee, because that is not allowed in New York State, and I have researched this to death, but an actual task force working group to look at a user fee. The Troy Redevelopment Foundation, they've done great work. However, they have donated $400,000, and those monies have not increased in 21 years, I believe it is. So you're looking back at the early 2000s was the last time that number has increased. And I get all the other benefits. However, at the same time, even in the comptroller's report regarding nonprofits, there is a void there. And that number somehow does need to go up because they obviously do receive services, various services from the city. So stating that the majority will be sponsoring legislation for working groups to look into this issue. Your feelings in particular on the user fee in terms of coming from, you know, a major nonprofit, and we get all the benefits. However, you know, your position in terms of a user fee, and or that fee of $400K going up somehow.
And I would need to see the specific proposal. I would urge, though, that the not-for-profits be involved in the conversation. And, you know, first and foremost, in my position now, I'm working for the people of Troy. I don't work for RPI. And that's why I would say bring them into the room and talk to them. Because, you know, most people don't realize that the not-for-profits actually do pay property taxes on a number of properties. I've seen the rolls, but let them come to the room and have that conversation. I do think there's incredible value as anchor tenants for our community, as employers that the not-for-profits provide. St. Peter's Partners, Samaritan Hospital, Emma Willard, Russell Sage, Hudson Valley, you know, and RPI. So, you know, I would need to see the specific proposal, but bring the players to the table.
Fully agree. We're on the same page because the working group will just do that. Bring them in, talk to them, hopefully go to their various settings, not have it down here. And stating that, I just wanted to get your feelings. And I obviously like to hear that you're not with RPI anymore. Yes, obviously you hope to partner with them, but obviously you're in a different role right now. So, you know, so saying that there is no specific proposal other than looking at a user fee or trying to get that $400K up somehow.
Yeah, and that's why I said with council members deal with her questions, building new bridges and more bridges. There are existing bridges. You know, I can remember going to Prospect Park and helping clean up the park with our staff and students. I can remember going out in the community and doing the same thing. You know, I remember talking to Amy Klein at Capital Roots about all the students that went down and the staff that went down to volunteer there. The work gets done. I don't think it necessarily gets recognized as you know, well as it should be. You know, and that's where there's opportunities to build some new bridges.
And, you know, twofold though, they have an opportunity also. When we talk about the other nonprofits, I can tell you firsthand, they do reach out to me. St. Peter's, Hudson Valley, Sage, the new president, when they came on board, reached out. You reached out to me with the new president. I am hoping with the new president that there is a different tone. I truly believe over the past few years, it's been kind of, you know, the press and some of their employees are fabulous, but I think from maybe the top administrative level, it really has been no communication whatsoever in terms of, I don't know about you, Councilmember Ashby Fairs. I mean, I'm not even invited to any of their functions where, you know, when Byron Pipes was there, he made a point when he was the president of inviting the council to various functions. And you know, something, a very simple function. He really felt that community feeling. I think that went awry over the past 10 years. So opportunities. I do apologize, Councilmember Gully, I never asked if he wanted to ask Chris anything. Sorry. And then Councilmember Steele.
Council President, he just has to unmute himself.
Okay.
I clicked ask to unmute. And then he has got to bring his video back on.
I'm not done.
It's all good. It's all good.
I'm just messing.
All set?
He's still not.
Councilmember Steele and up. Jim? I know Jim, you see him?
Now he turned his video off.
Jim? Councilmember Steele, go ahead, Memo.
I just wanted to.
Now he's here. Jim?
Can you hear me?
Um,
Can you hear me?
There you go,
Oh.
just in case someone's tuning in. They may not be.
What a terrible system.
Okay, Jim, you're on.
Can you hear me now?
We sure can.
All right, great. Council President, I have one question for Chris.
Here he is.
Is it too late for that? Because I couldn't really hear anything.
No,
I really
that's
couldn't
right.
hear much.
Go ahead.
Hey, Chris, welcome to the administration. I know that kind of crazy when you come in midstream like that, but you know, that's what it takes when people have to stand up a little taller. So my question is just, hey, you know, again, you're coming in after a strong deputy mayor. There were a lot of projects and programs initiated. It's tough midstream, but I think that maybe you can help me understand a little bit how you're going to prioritize that list of the many numerous things that were being pushed forward, and how you will be able to help and work with the council to kind of stay strong with policy and stay weak with politics so we can get some results in the city. I think that would be my only question for now. But it's hard to hear you unless you speak into the mic because it's just tough for me. I'm on the road.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. So the question was exactly.
Basically, you had a very active deputy mayor, and she started a ton of projects, and a lot of them are midstream, Chris. How do you intend to prioritize them and see them through?
So one of the advantages I saw of taking the position is I was involved in a lot of the projects previously. I mean, not as a city government employee, but as the community relations director for the university. So I've been able to get up to speed on a number of projects, but you have to take it a day at a time. There are a lot of things we have to work on. You know, one of the number one priorities is ARPA. The other one is DRI. You know, and then as the council president mentioned, ensuring day-to-day operations of the city. And I'm focused on day-to-day operations of the city as well as some of those signature projects right now. So you take it, Jim, you take it a day at a time, and I have phone calls with people like you, which I appreciate, by the way.
Okay, Councilmember Steele and then Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Mine isn't really a question, it's more a comment. I think a lot of the things that we are bringing up, we have to bear in mind. We are hopefully coming out of a pandemic, and that is, you know, with relations between organizations and even staffing, all of that. We're feeling the effects of that. So I think we have to be a little forgiving in certain respects.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, yeah.
So you made a comment that you will always make the final decision. Okay. So this position is relatively for 2 years. In those 2 years, do you think that you will make the decision with your partner to make Troy your permanent home, whether anything happens after 2 years or not?
Yeah, we're certainly open to try on a permanent basis. We looked for, you know, houses to rent. We looked at houses to purchase. And, you know, we just found the right apartment in South Central for this time. Yeah, we would certainly look at something like that in the future.
That's what I'm.
I do love Troy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't tell.
No, what I'm saying is, you said you made the final decision, so I know your partner's not going to have a say in this, that you're going to move to Troy.
You don't respond to that. Chris, it's one that honestly is married, has a partner, dating, we all get it. Sorry, okay.
I'd like to thank you. You know, I asked some tough questions and I appreciate your honesty. And I will always be pushing, whether you are deputy mayor or not, to move to Troy, because Troy is a great place to live and to grow old and to enjoy it. So that's where I was going with it.
And you're doing all three. No,
I am.
But we are very friendly and love each other. Councilmember Lynn.
He's gonna kill me.
It's a hot housing market right now. It's maybe not the greatest time to buy. Great time. It's always a great time to rent. So my question kind of, I have two questions. First is, you know, going back to that delegation, and when, you know, when we have constituents come to us and they have a question, and you know, especially for the newer members of council, you know, we're still learning who to go to and the best way to reach them, was their preferred way. And of course, our former deputy mayor, as an individual, as a constituent, it was just pick up the phone and call her or message her. And it doesn't really build long-term capacity. And so what's your approach so that when we're like, yeah, Chris, I got a random pothole, which, you know, that should I give them your cell phone number? It's 9 p.m. I'll be a call. What do you want us to actually do?
Well,
I know my answer.
so you know you can reach out to me, but since you used the pothole example, my response is please have them report it. And if it is not addressed in a timely manner, then please reach out to me. Because that you know, if it got missed, then let's address it. It's case by case, topic by topic. I hope you all know that you can reach me, and you have in many cases, regarding whatever the issue is of the day or the moment. But I also believe in empowering our employees to have responsibility to address these issues. And that's why I say, if it's a pothole, report it. Because someone is responsible for maintaining that. And I will say that the crews have been out filling potholes. It may not look like it, but they have put down tons upon tons of patch. I cannot wait till the plant is open so they can do hot patch, for example. We are counting the days. But that's my style, is to empower our employees to be responsible and to take the action we need to take. And, but if you need me there, I'll be there.
And then my second question is back to that sort of town divide. Because obviously RPI under their current administration has been very the city. And of course, one of the things I think that everybody in this room wants is for RPI graduates to stay and start businesses and live in Troy forever. And then the same for Sage and the same for HBCC graduates and high school graduates and our trade school graduates. How do you think we can all work together to really weave the gown into the town? Just solve the problem right now.
Well, it'll be communication, right? Well, one of the things that I've always looked at is with the downtown, there needs to be more of a connection to the universities in town. But I will say part of it is the story. We were just talking about, so Rensselaer RPI has a video game center of excellence for New York State. Every one of the video game companies, or very close to every single one of them, came out of RPI as an RPI staff, student, etc., that helped form those companies. And there's tons of examples throughout the city where that happens. And I can remember, speaking with a student, and unfortunately, he was moving to California. I can't imagine why. Maybe it had something to do with the weather. But I said, by the way, did you know that these businesses were here? And he was a senior, and he said, no. I said, I will bring you down to see these businesses. And that's when I had time, because I think I was in my first or second week at RPI. That quickly changed. But the message is the same. We have to ensure that we're communicating two ways, and we are bringing our students down. That's already happening. How do we keep the momentum going?
It's so funny you said that, because I've been here 15 years and I went to a ton of folks work for some of the big video game companies downtown, and literally are a block, 2 blocks away. I did not know that RPI, that flowed out of RPI. I knew they did gaming training, but I didn't know that they had a center that brought it here. And that's, there's so many opportunities if you have the information.
But I would say the gaming center came later. That was something that I worked with New York State to get that here into the city of Troy, so they could do additional outreach, both with K through 12 and on the funnel of getting our students getting RPI students to start new businesses. But when you think WB Games, you think Balla Brothers, Bell Adventures. When you think of First Playable, every single one of those has a very strong RPI connection with their family. Thank you.
Councilmember Sarmiento.
Chris, very simple but very important question. How do you like it so far? Good.
I'm really enjoying it, actually. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, it's a lot of work, but that's to be expected. But when I'm walking in and smiling, and I really feel like we're helping people.
No. Chris, real quick, getting back to basics, the paving program has kind of been, one of my pet peeves over the years in terms of being very close to the vest of the deputy mayor. I mean, we would maybe see it after asking 10, 15 times toward the end of the summer, and then we'd see this, ton of paving in the fall. I want to obviously get your thoughts. What is our paving program for the upcoming year? What's that communication in terms of to the council? And on that note, You know, it's really been a pet peeve, not just of mine, bipartisan, the communication between the administration and the council. I mean, obviously, we are equal branches, but we do need communication, and you have talked about that essentially as the core of many of the things that you mentioned tonight. How's that communication going to have improved? And more importantly, what is the paving schedule and what is the filling schedule? Not just like, is there an actual plan for filling? Like, I know I called about for a park, it's a war zone. People are using the median to get around the potholes. So saying that, is there a plan, and what's the plan for the paving schedule?
So in the first point, the paving schedule is something I need to dive into dive deeper into that one. So I can get back to you on that. Regarding the potholes, we are currently coming up with a plan. What I will say is, from my conversations, they've taken two different approaches in the past. One is to focus on the edge of we have two crews, one in the north, one in the south, and they work their way towards the center of the city.
So the center gets screwed.
Well, you have to start somewhere. The other one is having them bounce around the city. Unfortunately, you know, if they're bouncing around the city, they're spending more time driving than putting down patch. So it's trying to figure that out, and we are also looking at how does this connect with street cleaning, right? Because you don't want the street cleaners to come down and just be billowing up the dust from where there's a hole in the ground. So it's not as easy as it might seem, and that's why we're having the conversation to figure out how.
And communication, I would just end, if everyone's good, we, you know, really request that communication be more enhanced, not just to the council, but we did talk about an SMS, text, and phone call system, and I know that there's money for it, much like school districts have. You talk about the pothole reporting and all that, you talk about the call for the snow plowing. You know, honestly, the communication needs to be so much better. We're living in like the 1980s, I think, and somehow that SMS text has to get in over the next year, and just the communication with the council, I would just implore be a little bit. Okay, and I'm not putting that on you. Okay, I'm not. Did anyone else? All right. Chris, on the final, thank you so much for joining us. And you know, I know some of the questions, but you have to know we're here to work together to literally work for the people of Troy. And at the end of the day, that's our goal, to provide them the basic services, quality of life, and the tax base and their quality of life. So thank you and good luck. Thank you. All right, Chris, I know we're a little late, sorry. Nobody needs a potty break, right? Have a move in your, you're selling your house. Wait a minute, somebody's trying to sell a house.
There's a house for sale.
Yeah.
I know.
I was wondering
Oh,
who
yeah.
this gentleman
It's really
was.
nice.
Seems integral to easy system operation.
Thank you, man. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's my first attempt.
Just for some minute.
Chris, I did print out what you had sent me, but not the link. Thank you. Oh, this is awesome. I will open up, I do have to open up the workshop, and while Chris is handing these out, I would ask Council Member Steele to lead us in the pledge.
Why didn't you give me one? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilmember Steele. For all. We'll do a quick roll call. Councilmember Hill. Okay, Councilmember Gully is here. Look at the
Yeah,
delay.
do it, huh?
Councilmember
you go.
Ashby, present. Councilmember.
So like, this is a different computer than this, just so you know.
Present. Councilmember Conley Wilson is with us.
Present.
Councilmember Soriano here. Council President Renfro, second president. I know Councilmember Gully
Pick
is with
what
us.
speaker you're using.
Council President, can you hear me?
We sure can. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
These are two
Welcome.
separate. Okay.
Okay.
Well, if you can hear me, I'm still here.
Yep, thank you. Yep, we have you recorded,
All right.
sir. Thank you.
I just don't
But
know.
if you hit this little button, if it was connected,
Yeah,
you'd actually be able to
Because the
select that.
camera is here, which we figured out.
So,
Yeah, there's-
real quick,
I
Chris
know.
Wheeling
Next time.
is with us this evening. Chris is the superintendent of DPU, and I want you to know, Chris, you're really doing an amazing job. And there's some really big projects that you're dealing with, and unfortunately, the federal and state government has now handed us yet another project, which is going to be very, very difficult
He's gotta do that
to
himself.
meet. And I coincidentally, just so all of you know, I was part of this statewide, there's a water alliance of some sort. I'll let Chris correct me. I was part of this Waterworks Association. I texted Chris and said, hey, there's a staffer from Rochester talking about the lead and copper rule. He mentioned the guy's name, and sure enough, it's obviously a close network. And Chris tapped into that PowerPoint, but upgraded it. And I just want to thank Chris for really getting on top of this issue. So take it away, Chris. And I guess first we'll let you do the PowerPoint, then we'll open it up for questions. Okay.
Just trying to pull up the PowerPoint now and share screen so I can show everybody on.
We'll try. We will try.
It should, if you do share screen from there, it should pull up, because you're on this video here. You're watching YouTube now.
Well, so the video is connected into,
I'll let you guys.
I'm sorry.
Yanni has.
Well, I think it's like we're seeing a lag here.
No, because we're watching this. Yeah, it's not all on the one. We're on 5 second delay. Yeah.
We have to
It's 'cause
remind
the
the
camera's
cameras to
not
like
on.
and subscribe and hit that notification.
All three of them that were out there.
It's still, you're not
I'm sharing my screen.
So just give me- I do.
Just can you make it easy this way? Through the, like maybe say, use that booster.
That's what I tried to do. So, right?
As I'm sharing my screen live. There it is.
This is great.
Just talk really slow, Chris.
The Zoom is on here.
It's moving very slow. Now it's loading everything I do.
There'll be a little bit of a delay.
So to start off, I'm Chris Wheeling, Superintendent of Public Utilities. Next to me, I have Andrew Golden, he's the Assistant Operations Manager. He's everything water plant pump stations. So together, we're working with our water treatment plant staff to try to devise this rule, understand it, so we can better implement it.
I would say like click it 5 seconds before you want to talk about it.
Yep. So there's always been a lead and copper rule. And lead up until it loads up here. Previously, the lead and copper rule by the EPA was just. Sorry. Previously, the lead and copper rule was we go out and take a few samples every year. We see where it goes. Every water system has a corrosion control policy program that they implement. Lead leaches into the water, the lead service lines. It's not in the water, it's not in our treated water, it's when it reaches the service line. It's where the lead comes into the water. Water is corrosive, and lead is a very soft metal. So water will eventually just let it leach into the water by sitting there. Easiest example in past years has always been just let the water run for 5 minutes. So you get fresh water out of the main, it has been in contact with the lead service line, and you're fine. You go up on the lead service line, I think I'm okay. But I never know. But there's been, with a lot of recent events, lead has become more of an issue. There's been a couple communities that have changed their sources without health department approval in other states. And those sources were extremely corrosive. So the lead content went through the roof. So through that, the EPA kind of took over and said, we have to revise this. And so what they're trying to do, if you look at the screen, they're trying to improve public health through a proactive, holistic approach. Bring all municipalities on one level. It's very costly to do that, but that's what we have to do. Earlier actions to reduce lead risks weren't the best. So this is going to make it a little bit tighter regulation and improve transparency and communication. That's what the residents know what's going on. Water has always been silent service. You turn your tap on, you get it, there's no problems. You turn your tap on, you don't get it, the world is coming to an end. You know, I get phone calls from everyone here when somebody turns their tap on and they don't get the water. Or it's cloudy, or it's dirty, or the pressure's reduced, or good spots in the house it shouldn't be. All those sorts of things. So what we're looking to do is trying to get the lead out. It's a nationwide approach to get the lead out. Get the lead service over there. What it does do is it increases the burdens on the states, the health departments, the local health departments. They have to implement it. There's a funding issue that goes along with it. And then there is the how do we do it. We'll have a presentation very soon. So in October of 2019, the lead, we call it the LCRR, lead copper rule revision, is what it is. EPA drafted this up in 2019. It was finalized in January of 2021. Now for comment, and there was more comment periods through the whole thing. Every time EPA does something, it's wrong. EPA announced the review of it in February 2021, and in December of 2021, it goes into effect. Going into effect means they still have the chance to make revisions on it. The deadline for us to come into compliance is October of 2024. That meaning we have to have all lead services out of our system by October of 2024. What it means is that we have to have a plan to get the lead out of all of our services by 2024. The plan has to be.
Hey, Chris, I know we said we may, but I'll forget this question. I apologize. Does that include the funding, knowing where that's coming from, or no?
No.
Okay.
This is a mandate that we have to live by, and we're hoping that funding is coming sufficient enough to meet the mandate. As I get further into the presentation, we don't think the funding is there. The administration has announced a whole lot of money going out. The state hasn't received it yet. The state doesn't know how they are going to get it, implement it, how long it's going to take them to give it out to communities, what the scoring will be, what the application process will be, who gets it first. Does it go to lower income communities, lower income areas within communities? It's nobody knows yet. So it's We're at the beginning. DOH is. So we get into that a little bit further as one of the problems that DOH currently is understaffed what they have.
Yeah.
Now they have another brand new program for EPA that's not funded, that they have to develop pretty much from the ground up. New York State DOH likes to take primacy. What that means is they like to control the programs within New York State. In order to do that, they have to take EPA's program, mirror it, get it through legislature to approve, and then EPA has to approve that. So it's an 18-month process for DOH. So we're really trying to get ahead of the curve, knowing that this is coming. Not knowing what it's really going to mean, but knowing that there's going to be some sort of implementation of this program. We're really kind of all, and this isn't just Troy. This is, I mean, you heard from David Rowley in Rochester, who I told him I'm going to plagiarize his presentation. And he was very happy. I owe him a drink later. But we're all New York City, Suffolk County, Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, we're all under the same rule. We're all flying blind, which is why we're trying to develop this plan now. Because if you try to do it 5 months before the deadline, it's too late. It's way too late. We're finding that out already. So there's 4 things that we really have to focus on right now, which are under the rule. The lead service line inventory. We have to know where the lead is in the city of Troy. There's about 12,280 service lines in the city. We have to know if it is lead or not. If we cannot determine that it is not lead, we have to declare it as lead.
Councilmember Ashman.
So if we cannot determine it's lead, is that by the feasibility testing? The testing.
Either or. So right now we have the website set up where residents can go on, and even if they don't know if it's lead or not, they can take a picture. And that comes into our GIS system and goes onto a map. Through that, if we can't tell, we'll have a phone number or an email. We'll contact the homeowner and say, hey, can we stop by and take a look at it? And then through that communication will be, yeah, it holds a magnet or it doesn't hold a magnet, or we can try to determine.
Is this the line in the house that's like where I have the meter for my water? It's that line right there?
So there's, yes, it's the one coming in from either the wall to the meter or the floor to the meter. And there's 2 portions to that line. That line comes in from the water main. The city owns from the water main to the curb stop, which is the valve usually between the curb and the sidewalk, sometimes in the sidewalk. The city owns that portion. We have decent records on what that is because we own it, and when we change out, we record what's been changed out, what hasn't been changed out. And that curb stop into the meter has always been, by rules and regulations, a private line. If that line breaks, it's on the homeowner to repair. That's the way it's always been. This rule changes that. This rule states that we are responsible to get the lead from the main to the meter. How is not determined. So some communities are they just take responsibility for everything right to the meter. Other communities are saying, we'll change it out to the curb box. It's up to the homeowner. We're going to force the homeowner to pay to change it out the curb box to the meter. Other communities are saying, the city's going to change it from the main to the curb box. We will also switch it out from the curb box to the meter, but there's a cost to it. That cost has not yet been divvied up if it's a grant from the city, money from the federal or the state governments, or if it's more of a, we change it out for a certain cost and then we add it to the water bill at a certain rate and kind of loan it off that way. That has not been
So
determined.
let me just go back and ask that question because I just want to clarify it. The state said they would be responsible from the line, from the sidewalk line to the meter.
The state said the lead has to go.
It has to go. And they said that that the city's responsible.
The state says the lead has to go.
just has to go. So the other ones are making up their decision rules as they go along.
Yep. Yep.
And that could be very costly to the homeowners.
Homeowners or to other taxpayers.
Or to the
I should say
taxpayers.
ratepayers,
Repairs
because they come out of the water rate.
will come out of the water rate.
So I have a copper line. I paid to have my lead line removed. Another scenario.
And you
I
have to
had my
pay for
lead,
this.
I had my lead line removed 2 years ago and I paid for it. Do I get a benefit? Do I get a reimbursement
Oh,
for
why
that?
do I have to pay again?
Or why do I have to pay to have my neighbor's lead line?
Right.
So that there's, again, this is where it gets very controversial. Why we're having a workshop to explain some of the challenges that are going to come with this program if the funding doesn't funnel the way it should.
And you're saying from the federal government to pay for this.
Yes,
State.
correct, to the state, and then from the state to the community.
To the community.
So the one thing that does help us, so I told this morning, I wouldn't, we are under an exceedance. We've had an exceedance on our lead last year. In our water quality report. Sampled 30 houses every year. We're allowed to have 3 over the action level of 15 parts per billion. We had 4. Okay. Sounds awful. It did a couple of positives for us. One is now we are a priority for the state on funding. 2 is we already had to send mailings out to all residents, letting them know if there was an exceedance, which pushed us to get mailing out, but also allowed us to get information out on the website so we can start this inventory. Okay? It also forced us to review our corrosion control policy at the water plant. I see our corrosion control policy is we bring the pH up to between 8.5 to 9.5. Bring the pH up of the water is less corrosive. The lead won't dissolve. That's our program. So we have our engineers reviewing our corrosion control policy and also trying to determine if there is a better chemical or treatment that we can go through to lessen the corrosivity of the water. We've been very busy. Very busy. So we got through the list, we got through point 1 on this.
It's cold in here.
I know,
So
I
the
want,
next portion is the lead service line replacement plan. By 2024, we have to have a plan in place to replace the lead service line. We have to have documentation that says, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. As methods, are we going to open trench it? Are we going to pull the service line through? Those are minor details that we have to work through, but there's a cost difference. How do we prioritize? Do we go to, it's going to sound awful, but it's an everyday single. Do you go to the single little lady who lives by herself and doesn't use any water? Or do you go to the multifamily that has 24 kids? How do you prioritize who is number 1 on your line for replacement? So we have over 12,000 service lines. We're anticipating probably about 5,000 people. This isn't going to happen overnight.
You only have to change the lines that are lead
Yes.
and everybody, so if I don't have lead, I don't have to change this. I'm good to
Nope.
go.
We need your inventory. Because if you don't inventory, I have to declare it as lead.
But if I don't have lead, but I'm still gonna have to pay if it's gonna be charged. Because you're changing everybody else's lines out.
It's got to get paid somehow. And if we don't have funding from the state, it's going to have to come from the other ratepayers. Nope, that's fine. So that, and that's
Right.
part of the problem is how do I force you? Why should you have to pay more for the lead service line? It's not your issue, but it's your neighbor's issue. So holistically, and it goes back to that first line of a holistic approach to get the lead out, which means we're all involved. If you have lead, copper, galvanized plastic, whatever type of material, we're all involved in trying to make the community better by getting the lead out.
Councilman, I guess
So my next question is gonna be, okay, so you're gonna be coming, like, okay, you came in to change your line out. You're gonna dig up under my sidewalk and so forth. Okay, I just had all new sidewalks replaced. Who's gonna pay to replace them again?
Yep. That service line. Same thing as if the street was just paved. We're trying to work with the sidewalk program. We're also trying to work with the paving program. But out of the 12,200 letters that were sent, 700 were returned as undeliverable. They went out in November.
I got a
We had
letter.
175
You got a letter?
website,
Oh.
so 175
letter.
people have actually inventoried what they have. So out of 12,000 letters, we have 175 responses.
I honestly don't remember this.
Went to every bill paying and every resident short. And we've had 54 phone calls to the lab. So through this, if somebody wants their water tested, we are testing. It's a cost for the sampling program also, but we want people to be aware. We want to make the community members aware of what they have in the water. We've had a few call that have copper, but they were concerned because their neighbors have lead. We still test it. Just to be safe, there's no way it's going to go into a service line to your house, then the water comes out of that service line to go into the next service line to the other house.
Chris, real quick. They're looking to have done by the end of the year.
We're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. I would like to start replacing service lines this summer.
Yeah.
Because when it comes into it, they give us 10 years, and when you see the price on it, you're gonna drop your jaws.
But we don't have to have the plan until 2024.
No, we don't. We know there's a lead service line, let's get it out. If we're paving a road, if we're redoing a sidewalk and there's a lead service line, it's gotta come out anyway. Let's get it replaced now, so when we put that sidewalk in, that cost is bared by the sidewalk program. When we pave that road is the cost of repaving that road is bared by the paving program. It doesn't all go into the cost of the service line.
Yeah, but then in total. Number of years that are in this repair.
Other way to look at it is it'll be paved this year and we'll dig it up next year. And I'm sick and tired of doing that.
I guess the first thing, I'm just a little confused because you can't really, I don't feel, go out and start in the summer. If like, say in a neighborhood, say we all live on the same lot and you responded to the inventory, 4 of us didn't, 2 of us did. It's premature in terms of saying, if I didn't respond, we're just automatically going to label you as having lead. So we're going to do those 5 houses and not the 2, where if we can pump up that inventory and have a better knowledge, who has lead and who doesn't, then we can target areas. So we're not dealing with you're hoping we don't.
Full plan, I agree. I think I fully agree with you that we should be doing this in hotspots. We should be doing blocks at a time. Mobilize a contractor in one area and let them go. Then we're not paying for him mobilize in South Troy for 2 services, then up in Berlin for 2 services, and up on the east side for 3 services. And we're bouncing all over the place. We have 175 services now that we know by our website that are lead. We want to consolidate those, start replacing those. We've already had concerns from those residents because of the lead. A lot of those areas have families that have young kids that are concerned. I don't want to procrastinate. I think we have to develop a full plan, yes, but I also know we have concerned people now. We have a $500,000 grant from the state for this. I also put $500,000 into our capital plan for this. There's $1 million to get a jump start. And once we replace it, then we can take it off of that list. And when the other money comes from the state, we can put that into other concerns, other areas. We just sit on, my concern is we sit on this for 4 years.
That's a year.
Yeah. We have, and we have, so we also have an inventory of where our service lines are, the ones between the main and curb stop that are lead. And we have on our GIS system, red circles, and where we can hit 100 on 4-block radius. Those would be areas that I would focus on, because we still have to get those out also. And if we're there doing that, once the hole is dug, hopefully dig a hole at the main, dig a hole at the curb box, okay? Pull the lead out and push the copper right through and make the connections. A lot of the times you can do the same thing from the house to the curb box. As you pull the lead out, you push the copper through. Okay, so once we dig up the curb box, if we find out that the house is also lead, we can replace that in kind.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we have the deputy mayor here because he's working on getting department heads together. Because I do know that like the 4th and 3rd Street are going to continue having CDBG sidewalks being done. And so coordinating with that paving, and I don't know if National Grid is going to add more texture to our roads with more high pressure gas again this summer. You know, I don't, that's obviously outside of their scheme, but they're already shredding stuff, so. But I was wondering if like those areas that know that we're gonna be doing sidewalks, and they can get hit and tested. One of the other questions, I know you've been putting in meters, throughout the city, water meters, about how many do you do a year? And does that add to your the lead?
The past 2 years have been kind of screwy with that. The
Yeah.
pandemic and not getting into houses. We tried to, the 12,000 services, we tried to do a 10-year replacement program. So we tried to do 1,200 a year. With that, when the truck pulls up to change it out, they do whatever it's like. But realistically, in the past few years, it's been spotty. Before that, they didn't do it. It's a new thing that we implemented because of this. So it's going to take, 10 years to get that full implementation back.
And I think also that as we develop the paving,
I want to focus on those areas specifically to get an inventory so we can get this done. So once we get our work done first, then they can do the sidewalks and do the roads and we're done.
so I think that's something that we can help communicate is for the streets getting paved, which everybody's happy about, and then like,
We have to dig up the spot.
right, we're also gonna do some texture on your sidewalk, and just, I'm thinking about this myself, and I know that I did get that letter, and I did a stomach drop. And I know where my water meters are, and I know that some people's sub basements are not cute. So getting access, and depending on how long those lines are, especially for long buildings, it's good to hear that you can pull.
Many times we can.
Yeah.
The concern comes in when it comes to liability. If we do have to put a hole into a foundation, then it comes to a liability. I would love to have a contractor do it.
Yeah.
It's on their liability. Problem is, you just tripled your cost.
Great flex, I don't think liability waivers are
I
like.
waited for him to go.
He's not here, let's do it now. Yes. Councilmember Conley.
I'm curious, and you might not know this answer off the top of your head, but I'm curious out of those, like, are we seeing specific neighborhoods actually responding quick, like responding to that survey, or is it kind of all over the place?
It's all over. It's all over. So we have an inventory, it's a file cabinet with cards of every house of where the service box is, what the service line is, when it was installed, when we last inspected it, when it was last repaired. To the best of our knowledge, they're accurate. Our GIS tech has taken all 12,700 cards and put that into the computer system. So all of our road crew can pull up the app, click on it, find out exactly where the curb box is, if it's buried, what material is there. You know, it's for that purpose also for our road crews, but it's also works for this. It's a red flag on that house. So even if we know our side is lead, I can't tell you what your side is. I'd have to dig it up to see, or get into the house to see what it is. A lot of people have changed them out and not told us. You know, their brother-in-law did, I got an excavator for a week, I'll change out your water line, no problem. And they do it on weekends and don't tell anybody. We are trying to work with code to see if we got a barricade permit for a water line. We can anticipate that anybody since 1980 has put in copper. So we are trying to work with that to decipher. We're trying to use every single tool we have to build up this inventory.
Chris, in terms of getting the word out, how about, there, I don't know if you would agree to this, like even using Relentless or a communications firm, a small one, maybe you can have Relentless, but small to get that word out. I'm talking, a few grand just to pump that word out. I mean, obviously we'll do everything, whatever, in the city, I'm sure, but you guys, that's not your forte to get the word out.
Right.
So, maybe, I'm not sure the mayor may already have an idea of how to get that word out to get people to send in the inventory.
And we got to keep in mind, it's not just a Troy issue.
Right.
It's an Albany issue. It's a Rose issue. It's a Waterloo issue. Statewide issue, nationwide issue. New York Section American Water Works Association is also trying to do notification to get the word out. Just to let you call your utility, see what's going on, let them know what you have, update them. Yeah, you might call and they might say, oh, don't worry about it, it's copper, I'm good, but call them, let them know what you have.
I think honestly, if some folks, if they don't hear it properly, they may be concerned, or they might feel that they are responsible to actually replace it. So I think somehow if we can get that little education out there, we might get more folks to respond to the inventory, and
That's a great point. We have gotten
just,
out of the phone calls I've received, one of the questions is, if I put myself on the inventory, am I responsible? My answer right now is, I don't know.
And that's a problem.
The federal government is pulling up a lot of money. This is a big cost for everyone.
I mean, I could see people.
Rates.
That was my reaction.
But they also have to know, if they don't tell us what they have, we have to say it's lead. We're gonna come in with a program to change it until we determine otherwise.
But they know that's not.
Right. And
I haven't
and we have a
had
lot of
any
landlords, I'm
I
sure.
Honestly, I'm just learning. So many other things that I was like, whoa, we gotta talk about. I mean, now we really have to focus on this to get you where I think, especially if the council says to bond or something like that, or we're not using ARPA, I mean, it's something obviously more importantly. So it's dual. You have to have that inventory built up.
Yes, we do.
That's awesome. Yes.
Is there any type of guidelines, like a sample plan that maybe either is already in place or there will be in place that you can go by?
Sample the water or to develop this whole program?
The whole program.
No, I get it.
We're all in that.
The EPA pretty much said, here's the new rule that we're thinking about adopting. Take a look at it, and by 2024, tell us what you're gonna do.
I mean, there is.
And the state hasn't come up with guidance for us either. So typically when it comes to a water system, rely heavily on the county health department and the state health department to kind of tell us, this is what you need to do. Here's a blank document, just fill in City of Troy on it, you know, change some things around, there's your plan. It's gonna be different from everybody. And some municipalities only own the main. Some do own up to the meter. Most are like the City of Troy where it's split. But that all goes into everybody's personal plans of how are we going to tackle it.
Do you know if any other municipalities have started a plan? Have any of it that you have maybe seen?
We're working, all the municipalities are working on the inventory. That is the first part of all this. And we have robbed, stolen from Albany, Rochester, New York City, Suffolk County on what they're doing. Our GIS tech has been in direct contact with them. I think they have quarterly meetings to try to update where they are, what's doing, what works, what doesn't work. For all the different stages, we actually know what our service lines are. Many communities don't even have that information.
We know exactly how many we have. A lot of people don't even know like how many connections or any of the, you know, service times or, you know, what material or any of that information. So we're doing pretty well in that regard. We just have a ways to go.
We are ahead when it comes to New York State.
So just thinking about other ways to get, to give you a little bit more teeth. And you may have already thought of these things, or there may be things that, you know, the administration and different departments. I mean, we could make a requirement for if you're pulling any permit, building permit, full stop, you must report before you can get your permit. You must go test your line. Or have your contractor go report and building. The other is, and this will be working through Department of Social Services at the county. Any property owner, any landlord that gets a housing voucher, they are inspected by the county in theory every year. And making that a mandatory requirement from the city, if they want their money, if they want their housing voucher, they must report. It must be reported. And then finally, any of the organizations that get a tax break, pilot, are asking for pilot renewal, that provide housing or own buildings would also be required to make that report within a certain period of time. They suspend their pilot or something like that. And that I think would tap some of your larger, you know, multi-property owners. I know how difficult it is just to find the right contact person for someone who owns a building, especially if it's an LLC. I understand completely how those letters bounce back.
And the recycling.
Oh,
Even the bills.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Chris, you said that, I wrote it down, I'm hoping I wrote it down the right way. You said that you have about 175 that you know of.
There's 175 that responded to the website.
That responded. Now that 175, did they take the test? And that's 175 that are left.
We have pictures of what the services
Okay,
are. They
okay.
did the test.
Okay.
There was like 5 that could determine, and we sent a crew to go look.
Okay. So out of that 175, was it a cluster of an area? Was it spread out? Was it, like say, was it all done in this section of Troy, or were they just, it was all, was it any of those areas a cluster?
I just asked about this question.
Right. Okay.
Where-
Same thing.
So
Oh, I'm sorry. I
That's all right.
apologize. Okay.
out of,
I
Just
was,
wanted to make sure.
sorry for re-asking the question.
so that was part of the exceedance. We had to send out a letter to residents anyway, saying if there was an exceedance, here's a procedure to follow. This is what we have to do. And with that, there was 12,000 letters sent. With that, we had you know, as expected, you get a response from 125. And they're from old.
Okay. So to get the information out, what are you looking at to do to try to get them? Are you looking to send letters out again to the homes? Are you?
I am looking to send out, we have the annual water quality report that has to go out. Here in that goes out by a postcard, the website on time. On that postcard, I'm also going to put on there something about lead, just for a cost. It was about $9,000 to send a mailing for the exceedance. To do a postcard, you drop your postage down 55 cents to 35 cents. If you send out 12,000 letters, it adds up quick.
So when the water bill is going out, is there any way you can add it on a water bill to put it out?
You can't put a lot of information on the water bill, so it might be confusing. And one little box on that water bill that we can add information. I'm looking more to work with Deputy Mayor John Sullivan on trying to get out to the residents that we have email addresses for, get to the neighborhood groups, let neighbors know, call your neighbor, let them know we have to get this.
Right, and I'm looking at
Social media.
not just relying on the mouth to mouth.
Right.
I'm looking at, we are sending mailers out with the water bill, so I'm thinking there's a lot of empty lines on that water bill when I get mine.
And we can put an insert in the water bill.
Yeah.
We don't put a letter in, we don't put the envelope in with the water bill anymore. The return, there's not many people
Yeah.
pay with a check anymore.
Yeah.
So we don't put an envelope in with that. So it's possible to put another piece of paper.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I apologize for re-asking the question.
That's right. I'd rather explain it 15 times so you have it.
Hey, Chris, real quick, what do you do about those nonprofits and about obviously the landlords we can't track down? I mean, it's certainly not fair on the landlords you can't track down, but down rate makers. So what do you do in those instances, and have you even talked about that?
Haven't been developed yet. Looking at this plan, I want you to get through this. It's going to be a 10, 15-year program to replace. I'm assuming the same thing as the meters. You have your non-compliant people that don't want the new meters in. I'm assuming that those problems will be 10, 15 years down the road. And by then we will have a program that is repetitive, that is understanding, that we've been able to modify probably multiple times based on what it's a learning curve. Based on what we learned, not only in Troy, but from other communities, that we will then be able to enforce it somehow. And we'll have a better understanding where the funding is, how much it costs to replace it, what's coming down from the federal government or the state government to replace it, what funding is available to help these, landlords. If I come into a landlord and say, I'm going to replace your service line for you, sure, go ahead. If I come in and say, you got to replace your service line, it's going to be $7,000, they're never gonna answer the phone again.
Yeah.
So I understand that is a huge hurdle and something that isn't solved yet. We don't know. But we can't wait till that gets figured out to start this inventory process. Otherwise, we have to declare the entire city lead, and we can't budget for that.
I get the end. Okay.
So
We'll go through these.
going back to I think we answered a lot.
Yeah, I know.
I just have to run through these now.
That's what I said, that we'll probably get through.
So as I said, we have to ID all materials as lead or non-lead. If you don't get an inventory, we have to put it down as a lead service line until we can declare that license. So we have 2.5 years to do it. Communities over 50,000, we have to make the website available for everyone. So you can log on to see who's put in their inventory, what their service line is, determine what it'll be public information. That's the new curve for us. Previous to 2001, everything was on the website. Once 9/11 hit, everything came off. There was very little on the website about our water system. Yes, we don't want anybody knowing where anything is. So this is a change for that. I have concerns with it also. Why should I put my service line on there? Why should my neighbor have to know what my service line is? We have to. There's no way around it. So if you look up at the presentation, you can see kind of, it pretty much mimics what all GIS systems are. Property lines, houses, residences, alleys, streets, mains in the street. Ours will look very close to this. We'll probably take the mains off and only show the service lines. So if you put in an address, it'll pull it up and zoom in on it, and then you can click on the pipe, it'll say what material it is. This is also something that is being developed. This is our GIS tech is working on this with other communities, best known practices, what's worked, what doesn't work, to try to really develop this into something that is usable by residents. Not something that just usable by someone who knows how to use a map, but everybody can have information on it. So as part of the replacement plan, we have to make sure everything from the main to the meter is copper. That's our material of choice. There is plastic out there. Plastic, I have concerns with plastic going into the meter. We have our material of choice is copper. We have to notify customers 45 days prior before we change out their service line. But it also lasts a lot longer. Plastic's been in the ground maybe 30 years. We've had copper services that are much longer than that. And there's also concerns with if you're in a contaminated area, petroleum products can leach through plastic, and plastic also dissolves into water, just like plastic water bottles. It's a different plastic, but it's similar. It can break down. Copper. There's still there's HDPE.
Yeah.
This is more of it's the poly plastic. And with the pressures that we have in Troy, sometimes our water pressures reach 110 pounds. You know, in a community that has 30 to 40 pounds, it's probably fine. 110 pounds is a different story.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's a lot of health issues with plastics and water, not like that's just. I think while it may be more expensive, it really is important that we're using like the safest materials that are going to last really long time and all that.
Oh, yeah, I just thought that there was a different plastic.
Yeah.
Not, the plastic from the old days.
It is a different plastic, but there are still some concerns in certain situations that you're in Troy. South toward the side, soil conditions are drastically different. I want to avoid all those concerns. We haven't had any problems with copper. Copper is still material to use. It's very effective. I understand no side effects from it to date. I can't see what's going to happen next year. Same thing for plastic. Who knows what's going to be the problem next year? Same thing with giveaway. Who knew that was going to be an issue? PCBs or anything else. The world is changing. We can test for a lot more things now. So we need to understand what is best. Right now it's copper, although it's a little more expensive. I think in the long run, it'll last longer and provide better water quality. So we have to let them know 45 days prior that we're going to come and replace it. We have to provide pictures and filters once we replace it. We have to test the water at 3 and 6 months afterwards to make sure all the lead is gone. Once we get that 6-month result back and there's no lead, then they can stop using the pitcher. So there's a cost there. As it said, we must offer to replace the customer owned portion, but we don't know how that's going to be funded yet. We cannot do partial service line replacements. We cannot just replace from the main to the curb box. We cannot just replace from the curb box to the house. If it's lead, we have to replace the pole. There's been studies done that if you do a partial replacement, you get a lead spike for many months until you get the growth on the inside of the pipe until it protects the pipe. So it has to be main to main. Typical service line replacements, $5,500 to about $9,000. So the current rule the old rule is we had to sample 50% of the samples from lead lines and 50% could be from homes with copper plumbing, but they would have on the inside. Which kept the numbers variable. The new rule is 100% of the samples have to come from lead lines. They also changed it that we used to just take the first draw, first liter off the tap. We also changed it where we have to take the 5th liter off the tap. So we have to have residents now typically we drop the bottle off at your house. Let it sit for 7 hours. Typically, it's first thing in the morning. You wake up in the morning, you take the first liter draw, put it on your porch, we pick it up. Now we need the 5th liter. Now we have to inform residents for a lead sample that we drop off 5 bottles. Make a note of which one is the 5th bottle you fill up, because that's the one that was sitting in the service line, not the one that was sitting inside the house. And that's the one that has to get sampled. It's going to be a mess. We are relying on homeowners to try to decipher how to do this, or we're going to have to send a lab tech to your house at 5:30 in the morning when you wake up to do this. That's just not. We are doing the first liter sample now. So if somebody calls up and says, I want a blood sample,
I mean, for us to do.
we're doing it now. The 5th liter sampling, we're not doing yet. That's a 2024 rule. We're doing the first sample drawing now.
Want me to go get her, Chris?
Throw a little spice of lead. Chris, so you said the 5th liter shows where the.
As the rule developed, it was always the first liter. They understood that was kind of enough. With the issues that have gone on recently, they have come up with more studies on what water actually comes out of the service line. And it's more of the 5th liter of water at your tap that comes out of the service line.
But that's not till 2024.
Right.
Isn't it so weird though? Like,
Because you have all this water in your house.
no, but I was thinking, like, they're okay with the first liter now without the 5th liter. You know what I mean?
And it's one of those, if they tried to change that immediately on water systems, on residents, on communities, there was no reaction to that. So now we're talking 2.5 years out. Some communities are starting to implement this now. A lot of larger communities are, especially if you have a resident base that can understand what you're trying to do. It's very hard to explain what we're trying to do. A lot of them look at it as a burden on them, not as a service that we're trying to keep through water safety.
That's why this really, honestly, has to be rolled out.
Yes. Yeah, and that's, they're giving us 2.5 years, but we gotta start.
Council President. Chris, another possible asset for you in getting the word out, and then also if possibly real estate agents. We have such a hot housing market right now. And home inspectors.
A lot of the concerns that have come up are from homeowners trying to sell their house, and prospective buyers will not buy if there's a lead service on it. But we don't have the tools implemented yet to help them replace it.
But buyers can get money off purchase price.
From the homeowner. So the homeowner calls me saying, can you replace this? Because it's gonna cost me money, because now I gotta get it replaced, or give the buyer credit. You know, it's the seller's problem right now, and it's a concern.
Yeah.
I've only gotten a handful of those phone calls, but somehow the buyer and the real estate seller figured it out. But it is something that going forward, you know, put the priority list. Hey, you're selling a house, you know, lead service on. You are now a priority.
And have you been able to, like, this may be another, like, if they're in fresh conversations and making it part of their mandatory inspection report?
They do, many inspectors do add that onto their inspection report. I'm looking to see the copy of that, find out if that's letter. That's something that typically is just done between buyer, not necessarily. Service on them. So that's
I'm almost wondering, like, on the county level, if they want their deed recorded after a sale, they have to have that recorded. But the lawyers,
It would be so much easier if people just went to the website and said, yeah, I have lead.
Yeah. But-
Because now we got to try to get the county records and read a deed to figure out if they have a lead
no,
service.
I mean, as part of the,
And I still have to prove it.
yeah.
So if EPA comes in and does an audit, and I say, my house doesn't have lead, prove it. I need to show them a picture. I need to show them proof that it was inspected. Here's a picture of the service line. No, see, it is copper. I can't just go on somebody's word of, oh, it's copper, don't worry about it. I need proof for an audit purpose.
So the picture uploaded to the website is super important.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Whether it's lead, galvanized, or copper.
Okay, that's a really good piece of information to be communicating to people.
You know, it's easy enough. It's on the app, on the phone. It just, you
Yeah.
go right to your basement. It takes 3 minutes. Click, upload the picture, and it's, we get it and gets inventory. We try to make it as simple as possible. And if you look at our site, you look at Albany's site, it's the exact same. We just took Albany off and Troy on. But it works. It works.
Easy to navigate.
Yes. Yeah, but we try not to get too much information from you, just enough where we can validate, yes, you're going, you know, this is who's sending us the report, this is the picture. We don't ask for, we didn't want to make it burdensome on somebody where there's too many things to fill out. I'm not filling that out.
Yeah. Chris, we have to wrap up in 15 minutes. It's totally been us. So thank you.
If you let me talk, I can get through it in no time.
Let's do it.
All right.
Good for you, Chris. Good for you.
I
You want the
apologize.
presentation?
I
You
know.
want the presentation?
I apologize. We're
I'll
all
put some
so
space for
into
that.
this. And
So if
Thank
you- if you look at the-
He
if you
said
look at
if you
the
let-
screen now, the blue line is the lead copper rule, where we sample for lead and copper, okay? That has a 2000 projection, it has a 2003 projection, 2006, all the way up to 2020. The orange line is the lead service line only. So we will only sample lead service lines. You can see how it jumps. Okay? And the red line is the 5th leader sample on lead service lines. You can see how it sticks way up there for that anticipated 2021. The current action level is at 15 parts per billion. That's the solid red line. You can see how pretty much it's anticipated that nobody is going to meet the exceedance level when this law goes into effect. There is also a proposal to reduce the action level to 10 parts per billion. That's the red dotted line. That way, even if we do lead service lines only or the 5th leader, it's going to exceed. That's the anticipation across the nation. So you can see where that is a drastic problem coming forward. Again, it looks bad, but since we are in exceedance and it sounds awful, it does put us ahead of the curve to do some preliminary items. Once that law hits, once that information gets out, every community is going to be in violation. And it's going to be a problem everywhere, and then they will all be allowed to get the fund. So this switch it. The EPA is considering lowering the action level. It won't be a trigger level. It's just the action level. Pretty much, there's no take a look at this. It's more of a you're in exceedance, you're in a violation. This is what you need to do. So we have to be proactive. We have to understand all of our communities and how we are going to react. The next slide is the impact on the finance. So systems with 5,000 lead services at 10% replacement rate, which is a 10-year replacement program. to take the lead out. At $7,000 a pop, that's 500 services a year, about $3.5 million a year for 10 years, just for the lead program. What we need to understand is even with the current funding of other projects, this money is going to take away from projects. It's going to be stolen from other areas, whether replacement programs, other capital projects, or treatment system updates, and it's going to be funneled towards that. So pretty much other things that we have been working on are going to stall out to focus on this problem.
And on that note, federal government needs to understand that's going to jeopardize other public safety water supply issues. I mean, that is insane.
Correct.
I mean, think about it. So we're going to address this, but forget about all the other public safety water issues we have. It's going to take away.
Especially now with PFOA.
Yeah.
A treatment system for PFOA is about $10 to $20 million. So just 1,4-dioxane, which is the issue going around, additional $15 million. So we're trying to treat water to the point of its pure H2O. Pure H2O does not exist. And if it did, it does not taste good and it's not good for you. All right, it's the minerals and everything else in the water that give it the flavor. Water doesn't taste like anything, that give it the flavor and make it hydrating for you, make it healthy for you. At some point, there's got to be a need of the curve on this. We don't know where it is. Technology and science has brought it to the point that we can test to 1 part per trillion. 1 part per trillion, put it into understanding. You have 15 Empire State Buildings filled with golf balls. You're trying to find one.
That's a great analysis.
That is what the level that we're trying to treat to in the 1950s water plant. Okay, for those issues. So we're trying to treat for that. We're trying to get our capital funding to get that level of water treatment. And now we have to focus on lead service lines. We have to do it, but with everything, there's a cost. Whether it goes through state sales tax, state tax, federal government, however, or water rate, which I don't want, but if it has to, that's where it's going to have to come from because we have to meet it. We have to. So currently there's estimated 360,000 service lines in New York. There's about $3 billion for lead service line replacement. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there's $170 million per year for the next 5 years. That covers only 28% of the funding needed for lead service lines. It can't happen at current funding levels, and we don't know where the next levels are going to come from or how they're going to. The next slide is on the impacts to the state health department. As we all know, the state health departments and the state and DEC issue that's an issue within the department itself. New regulations are coming out, and the staff has been tired of the way that things aren't being refilled. They are overtaxed already. And now to throw a whole new program on them, you're setting them up for failure on something that is very serious. That's unregulated. That's, other than the mayor, that's my boss. They give me my little book that I have to live by that tells me how to treat water. And they don't know they don't have the staffing to implement this program.
You can't get answers in my other job. It's terrible.
Yeah, they don't know. So we have 2.5 years. We got to get started. Biggest thing is the inventory, and then start to develop. We're going to have to change the rules and regulations on trying to develop a plan. I don't know what they're going to look like yet. I have like 5 different drafts. And I want to make sure it fits for everybody. So the mayor and I, definitely we'll be talking about options, how best to move forward. Obviously, if we change the rules and regs, the city council has to approve it. And we have to track what we're doing. We can't just go out and start ripping up lead service lines and put copper in. We have to know where we're doing it, how we're doing it, How many feet of copper went in? Do you have to inventory that? How many were replaced in a year? Where's the funding gonna come from? We have to work with the residents. We know what the sampling plan is after that. We have to have buy-in from the residents. And then we have to evaluate it. Is it working? Is it not working? What can we change? And this is only one program of many that we're currently doing. It's going to be interesting. That was the last slide. The next one was just a brief picture of questions. We won't have lead.
This is, we're gonna have to, like, obviously condense this PowerPoint by getting you like downstairs of Aaron's plans to get you at the meeting.
I think when we get to the neighborhood meetings, it's going to be more of what I need from the neighbors, not so much what the EPA is telling us we need. That's going to be more of what we need from the neighbors and how we're going to. You know, obviously get some feedback from them, what they would like to see in it.
Chris, where's that?
Oh, I got it from David Rowley. That's how my checks go.
I'm like, oh, it's not there now.
I didn't want my plagiarizing, so he said, okay, go ahead.
Their filtration plant got a really nice reservoir.
That's a right there.
All the work they've done on the river. Yeah. Chris.
Welcome.
Thank you both so much. Questions? Before, Chris, we're gonna talk to you about.
This is national,
Yes.
so it doesn't matter if Kim moves to Florida, she's still gonna have to.
I thought about that when she said that. Kim's like, I'm moving to Florida. I'm like, hello. Yes. Well, we're not sure these days. Okay, I will. Hey, Jim Belly, you still with us? He's having broken. Listen, I'll take a minute. Chris, thank you again. Thank you. And thank you, Mayor, for hanging out. You've probably heard this like 3 or 4 times. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Do you have anything to add?
We do really well. Once we get the information, we just need people to go to the website and get us the information. We can do a lot with that. Yeah.
You get that inventory.
My concern with, taking over the website, there's a lot of our older.
I don't know.
Do not use that first website. That's my concern.
Something real quick.
Go for it.
Kim just said that there's a lot of older people that don't use the website, that don't have technology.
Yes.
We still have a phone number.
Right, but you still gotta get to that.
Call. It was
Well, they
in the
pay the
manual,
bills,
it's
don't
on the web, it's on the website, it's our emergency number. If you call any of the DPU numbers and say you have a lead question, message will get to us. We will call you back. We will send somebody to get that inventory. It doesn't have to be web. Our guys will show up and do it on their phones for you.
Like in the mayor's office, I mean, when John gets back, he'll be able to put something really good together. And if you could, like even Chris, just put it in whatever you plan to put in the postcard, something more simple. Too. I mean, obviously, cut and paste. We have a motion. We have a second motion. Councilmember Steele, second. Councilmember Conley Wilson, discussion on the motion. Chris, do you want us to adjourn? I'm not.
I have one more question.
No, you don't.